When you guys are deciding to make an IP or port an IP over to a system, how much does the current installed base factor into whether or not they're either going to be an exclusive IP or when you announce that you're going multi-platform? I mean, how much of that business end is really at play right now for you guys?
There's a lot of different variables that we have to weigh in when we make decisions like that. Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, these corporations are business partners for us, and we work with all of them and we try to make the best game available for all of their platforms, and they all have different platforms. You talked about the Wii being totally different than the two others, but we have to think about the production cycle for a PS3 version, and we have to think about the production cycle for an Xbox 360 version.
A lot of us gamers are concerned about microtransactions. They can be great, they can be entire expansion additions to games, but sometimes the microtransactions people take issue with.
The most important thing for Ubisoft is the consumer. I mean, the main business model right now is to sell games like it's a DVD, it's in a box, and that's where most of the revenues come from. Having what you call microtransaction or downloadable content that you have to pay for, it's another source of revenue, but it has to be worth it. The revenue model on Xbox Live or any online platform can be a viable revenue model, and it's certainly something that we're looking into.
And to close on the idea of revenue, one of my other games that I loved was Beyond Good and Evil. And I know that critically that game was really well received, but financially maybe didn't bring in the sort of sales you guys are looking for. Are we going to see a Beyond Good and Evil 2 or what?
There's nothing in the plan for Beyond Good and Evil. Obviously, it was an extremely good game, extremely innovative, extremely original. Maybe it's not a game that sold 2-3 millions of copies, but it's still a game that did fairly well in terms of revenues. It's certainly not a game that we lost money out of it. And Prince of Persia, it's an example that comes back a lot, but Prince of Persia Sands of Time did sell like 2.5 million copies. If you look at the revenues, or if you look at the numbers in the industry, I mean, what's the percentage of games that sell over 1 million copies? There's not a lot. I mean, it's less than 5% of the games in a year that sell more than 1 million copies. So selling 2.5 million copies of a game is totally not a bad thing. I think the comparison comes from the year before we had launched Splinter Cell, the original, which sold 6 million copies. So if it gets the same, comparison, it's a little bit unfair. But I mean, I think we're totally comfortable with selling 2.5 million copies of a game.